Hello and welcome to ForumIAS. Today is 30th January 2023 and these are all the articles we are going to see for today. Let us move on to the first article. The first article is about ISHE data, that is the All India Survey on Higher Education, which is conducted by Union Education Ministry. And the overall headline says that student enrollments in higher studies have risen by 7.5% in 2020 to 2021. When we go into the minute data which are discussed in the article, they are saying that compared to the academic year 2019 to 2020, in the academic year 2020 to 2021, there was a rise in enrollment by 7.5%. When it comes to SC, ST and OBC communities, the absolute numbers have increased, but in terms of percentage, it has reduced. Compared to last year, the number of SC students would have increased, but as a percentage of overall enrollments, they have reduced. That is the meaning of this. And in 2020 to 2021, female enrollment was 49% compared to 45% in 2019 to 2020. And gross enrollment ratio, it has increased by 2 points to 27.3%. When it comes to STEM, that is science, technology, engineering and management enrollments, women are generally lagging. If we see in BTech and BE, women enrollment is less than 30% of total enrollments. And in 2020 to 2021, the number of universities increased by 70 and number of colleges increased by 1453. So we will now see some initiatives related to education sector, especially higher education. So the national education policy is giving a target to increase gross enrollment ratio in higher education by 50%. That is one thing. And the next one is the scheme Spark. Spark means scheme for promotion of academic and research collaboration. So basically, it aims at improving research by increasing the collaboration between Indian institutions and some foreign institutions in some 28 select countries. So it may be collaboration in course development, it can be collaboration in joint research, it can be collaboration in student exchange. So the overall aim is to improve the research collaboration. That is the Spark scheme. Sometimes in MCQ they may ask Spark stands for, or Spark is a scheme related to, and they'll give ABC statement. It is related to education sector, it is related to electricity sector, like that they might give. So for that purpose we must know this scheme. Then RUSA, that is Rashtriya Uchatar Shiksha Abhiyan. So this is a centrally sponsored scheme, and the emphasis of this scheme is to improve the quality of teaching learning process in graduation level, post graduation level as well as PhD level. That is RUSA. And then PMRF, PM's Research Scholarship, it is to attract best talent into premier institutions. But remember that this scheme is exclusively for science and engineering. These are some of the schemes. Now, what are the measures that can be incorporated in order to improve the enrollment in higher education institutions? Because we need to achieve this 50% target. So basically, from secondary to higher education institution, there is a transition. Some people drop out at this stage itself. Many people drop out at this stage. So if we can make this transition seamless, then the enrollment in higher educational institutions will improve. And large higher education institutions must be favored. so that they will be able to enroll more and more students. Expand open learning. So accessibility is improving and more students will enroll even from remote places. Women students whose education was interrupted due to various reasons would also enroll if open learning is encouraged. These days we have MOOCs, massive open online courses, right from Harvard University, IIT Delhi, IIT Bombay. Everyone is offering these kind of online programs. If we integrate open learning with these kind of MOOC, the accessibility will improve and thereby gross enrollment ratio will also increase. And then improving teacher shortage and quality. If the quality has improved, more and more people will be motivated to join. Improving employability. If there is a guarantee of job after course completion, then also more people will join for higher education. Offering more scholarships, that will also incentivize enrollment. So in this article we saw the statistics, we saw about some schemes, and we saw what can be done to improve enrollment in higher education institutions. This part is useful for mains perspective and this part is useful for prelims perspective. Moving on to the next article of the day, it is talking about the NREGA scheme. Okay, so first we will understand what is NREGA, then we will go to the analysis part. So MGNREGA is the Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Act. It is a work guarantee program which came about in 2005. It became a law in 2005 and it is implemented by Ministry of Rural Development. So the objective of this scheme is to provide 100 days of employment in every fiscal year to adult members of rural households which are willing to do public work related to unskilled manual work. So to break down this sentence, it will provide 100 days of employment for adult members and it will be unskilled manual work. It will be utilized in public work. For example, if there has to be a pond or watershed management that has to be done in a village, they will employ these NREGA workers. This is anyway unskilled manual labor. These people who are willing to work, they will be utilized in creating public assets. That is the simplified explanation for this part. So, because of the MGNREGA Act, there is a legal right to work. What is the aim of this scheme? It is to address causes of chronic poverty. Chronic poverty means prolonged poverty. In order to bring them out of poverty, there is a rights-based framework. That means there is a legal right to work. And how is it a rights-based framework? It is because of the demand-driven nature of the scheme. So they will register and within 15 days of registration of a demand for work, they have to get a job. Otherwise, they will get unemployment allowance. So this is what is rights-based framework. That is, the person has to get money either by working or they will get an unemployment allowance. And the wages are provided according to the Minimum Wages Act of 1948. And what kind of public work will be done, whether it is to construct public toilet, to improve watershed management, what kind of work in which these people will be employed, that will be determined by the Gram Sabha. So planning is done at decentralized level. Alright, so now the article talks about violation of entitlements. Actually, now a committee has been formed to examine the status of NREGA. In that context, these authors have given some suggestions to the committee. What and all issues the committee should look into, that is given here. So, basically what the article says is that the wage payments are getting delayed because of a convoluted payment process. It is a very complex process in which there are a lot of bureaucratic bottlenecks. That is the first thing. So wherever expenditure is low, in some states the implementation is not very good. The expenditure on this Narega is low in some states. There the implementation capacity should be strengthened. That is, capacity building should be done in those areas. So, and then in terms of Narega, we should focus on exclusion errors. That is, say, for example, in a village where SC/ST population forms significant part of the population, we should not only see if SC/ST people are getting work, we should also see as a percentage of population are enough people getting employment through this scheme. So we must ensure that people are not excluded. That is exclusion errors, and those panchayats where the wage payment is less than average, there must be more concentration, which means in these panchayats if the wage payment is less than average, less work is being done. So in this way, target population or in terms of panchayats, the implementation can be monitored, and these problem areas could be especially focused upon so that there is a equitable implementation of the Narega. Okay, so basically what is happening is there is a denial of demand for work. We already discussed that this is a legal right. How there is a denial of demand for work? The Gram Sabha or the authorities are not going to say there is no work for you. They are going to say there is no fund. There is intermittent and unpredictable fund release. So lack of availability of fund, and as a result the panchayats are not able to provide work. So there is a denial of demand for work. And in Narega, there are a lot of reforms. But what happens is that the stakeholders are not consulted. That is, they are saying that there is a top-down reform. From the top, it is implemented. The activists or the participants, all these people should be consulted in the process, and there must be a conducive environment for implementation. Say for example, geotagging of assets, that was implemented to ensure that actual work is done. But what happens is it creates a situation of over centralization. A centralized authority will verify this, and then the entitlements will be released. So over centralization, and because of this delay is happening, and ultimately denial of entitlement is happening. So any reform, it should be bottoms up reform, and all the stakeholders must be consulted. So that is what is suggested by this article. Okay, from prelims point of view, we saw the background, and from mains point of view, we saw the analysis. Moving on to the next article, it is about tax on tobacco products. Ever since the implementation of GST, the taxation of tobacco products, there are some problems in it. That is what is discussed in this article. Okay, so the article is saying that after the implementation of GST was implemented for the first time in 2017. Now 5 years have passed, and tobacco taxes haven't been increased for the past 5 years. So the author is saying because of tobacco use, the burden on GDP is 2,340 billion rupees. But the revenue that we get is only 537 billion rupees. So it doesn't even match. The revenue doesn't even match the loss to GDP. So it builds a case for regulating and disincentivizing tobacco use. And also every day there are 3,500 deaths due to tobacco use, and this also impacts human capital. We are losing human capital, which might therefore contribute to the GDP. So these are all the losses which are caused due to tobacco usage. Okay, now we will see the taxation structure. So the author is saying that there is a overuse of ad valorem tax. Ad valorem tax is a tax that is based on the value of an underlying product. say there is a cool drink, okay, and the cool drink is manufactured at the rate of 1 rupee, and if the taxation is as per the underlying value, the tax will be on that 1 rupee, okay. Similarly, for tobacco products also, most of the tax that is imposed on tobacco is ad valorem tax. The cost is obviously less, and if it is a value based taxation, the tax is also less. Many countries actually what they do is they use a mixed model of taxation, which means they use ad valorem tax, and apart from that there is also excise duty. But in India, if we see the central excise duty on tobacco, after GST it has come down very sharply. Though we are having a component of ad valorem tax and central excise duty, the taxation that is actually happening is very, very less. And we know something called as compensation cess in GST. That is, what happens is there is a cess imposed on sin goods like tobacco based products, alcoholic products, luxury items, and that money, that cess that is collected is used to compensate the states for any revenue loss occurring due to GST. So that is called as compensation cess. Now, tobacco is a sin good. It is obviously subjected to compensation cess, and there is also one more cess, National Calamity Contingency Duty, which arises from Finance Act of 2001. So these are some of the specific taxes that are imposed on tobacco, that is the compensation cess and NCCD. The author is saying that these cesses, they also have to increase as per the inflation. As the inflation increases, these taxes should also show a commensurate movement. They cannot be stationary even if the inflation is increasing. So these taxes should be inflation indexed so that the price level is very much high and it disincentivizes tobacco usage. So, and then there is a inequitable taxation between tobacco products. For cigarettes, only 15% of users use cigarette. That is largely the urban population, and cigarette contributes to 80% of tobacco taxes. But if we see these BDs and smokeless tobacco, chewable tobacco and all, what happens is more number of people are consuming this only. The price is also less, and there is less tax also on these BDs and smokeless tobacco. So this encourages consumption. One more point that is very dangerous is that the people who consume BDs and smokeless tobacco are far more large in number than the cigarette users. So it is like incentivizing consumption of BDs and smokeless tobacco. That is also one of the concern. So the author is saying the tax should be consistent across all the tobacco products. There should be a uniform public health policy. And there are some raw materials like tobacco leaves, tendu leaves, betel leaves. On them, the tax rate is very low, that is 0 to 18% of GST. They must also be brought under the 28% slab so that tobacco products become costlier. If we are bringing all of these tobacco related products under a uniform tax slab, then there will be equalization of taxes across products, and the taxation on the raw materials would also increase, and these tobacco based products would become unaffordable, which basically disincentivizes consumption, and because of that public health risk is also prevented. And these smokeless tobacco products, they are sold in small packet size, hardly 1 gram, 0.5 gram. So again they are taxed less because the taxation is based on weight. Instead, if the packaging is standardized like 50 to 100 gram, we can extract more taxes. And also if it is a bigger packet, the warning labels can also be easily printed. And another thing that is of concern is that small businesses, they are mostly engaged in the that is the BD and chewable tobacco. They are produced mostly by small businesses. Okay, so what happens is there is a condition under GST law that small businesses which have less than 40 crore turnover are exempt from GST. But what happens is these tobacco and BD manufacturers predominantly operate in informal sector and they are exempt from taxes because it is having a less revenue, and as a result there is a loss of tax base. Though protection of small businesses are important, public health concerns should also go hand in hand. Alright, so that is also very important. These two things should be balanced. And one more thing is, because of GST, states cannot raise tax on tobacco. They cannot unilaterally increase the tax on tobacco. Previously, states used this medium to increase their revenue and also regulate the consumption. But because of GST, that is also not being possible. So the crux of this article is that the price of these tobacco products should be uniform and they should be increased, they should be inflation indexed, and they should not be given any concession in terms of taxation, so that it is actively discouraged. That is the crux of this. The utility of this article will come in quoting something about public health and all. It will be useful in essay, it will be useful in GS2 public health topic. If there is something related to tobacco comes up, there you can quote this. Okay, it can be used as a fodder material for those kind of questions. Moving on to the next article, it is about SEBI. So why this is in news is because this Heidenberg report, which we all are familiar of, it has mentioned about fraudulent accounting practices by Adani Enterprises. So this Heidenberg is a investment research firm which advises investors who do short-term investments. So they have said that the Adani company, they are inflating the share price by stock manipulation. So this has resulted in a very big hue and cry in the market. So what happens is, because of this report, Adani shares are losing the credibility, and because they are losing the credibility, the stockholders are selling their shares. So there is panic selling because everyone wants to dispose of their Adani share. The price of Adani shares have slumped, it has reduced largely. And public sector institutions, banks, that is SBI and LIC, which are like very domestic systemically important institutions, they are very big investors in Adani shares. So if they have invested in these shares, if the price of these shares are falling, then net worth of the investors, investing company, that also will erode. So what money are the SBI and LIC putting? They are actually using the PF deposit of citizens. They are using the tax resources to invest in these companies, right? So actually what happens, though Adani shares are falling, it has large repercussions because of big public sector institutions investing the taxpayer money in these institutions. Okay, so the Heidenberg report says that this is something similar to the Satyam scam which happened in the early 2000s, and this creates a ripple effect. And because of this panic selling, its effect is felt in the entire stock market. Market itself is becoming highly volatile. Okay, so in this context, SEBI must step up. That is what the editorial is saying. So SEBI is a statutory body which was established through SEBI Act of 1992. The function of SEBI is to protect the interest of investors and to promote and regulate the securities market. So it is a quasi-legislative and quasi-judicial body. Quasi-legislative, why? Because it puts down norms and regulations for share markets, quasi-judicial because it acts as a regulator and it takes decisions on any irregularities. So it is a quasi-legislative and quasi-judicial body. The structure of SEBI is that the SEBI has a chairman and full-time members and part-time members. Within the security market framework, there is a securities appellate tribunal. So if some company is aggrieved by the decision of SEBI, they will go and appeal to the securities appellate tribunal. It has a presiding officer plus 2 other members, and this securities appellate tribunal has the powers of civil court, and even after appealing there, if the corporate entity is dissatisfied, then only they can go for appeal in the Supreme Court. So this is a background about SEBI. Now, in this context of an alleged scam, what should SEBI do? SEBI is a regulator and they are in the role of increasing credibility. So how do they improve the credibility and stability of our share market? They have to tighten the listing criteria, meaning the companies which can get listed in the stock market, they should be scrutinized properly, and if there is any breach of law, they should be punished in a very robust manner. Then only these type of scams will not happen. And also the credit rating, that is also a bit questionable. The credit rating systems, even the economic survey of 2018-19 talks about it. So in order to make credit rating a very credible factor, India should use the G20 mechanism, and this will resurrect the confidence among investors. So what happens is, the credit rating for a company is provided by a credit rating company, right? If I am company XYZ, I will myself hire a credit rating company to credit rate my XYZ company. Say my XYZ company is hiring PFC, the PricewaterhouseCoopers, PwC, sorry. So if my XYZ company is hiring PwC to credit rate my company, I am only paying that PwC company and I am only asking for an independent evaluation of my company. So what happens, there is a conflict of interest, and as a result the credit rating done is not proper. That is what is expressed by the critics. So in order to restore confidence among investors, G20 framework can be used. Okay, so regarding this article talks about the alleged scam that is happening. It provides a backgrounder about SEBI and what needs to be done in the context of upcoming scams. A final article of the day is what lessons we can learn from the Ukraine war. So what happened is that in the recent conflict between Ukraine and Russia, the Indian Army conducted a study on this war. What they have found out is that in the future, missiles and unmanned aerial vehicles will play a major role in warfare. So there must be an integrated air defense and comprehensive air defense solution, meaning we must be capable enough to survive an air-based attack. And also Indian Army has most of its ammunitions, most of its weaponry that are imported from Russia. That is one thing. The Russian equipment is failing. Another thing is spare parts also have to come from Russia. If Russia itself is embroiled in a very deadly war, our army is also facing a crunch. This was accepted by our Army General Major Pandey in one of the press meets that he conducted earlier. So, GBAD, there is something called as GBAD that is discussed in this article. GBAD means ground based air defense. Okay, so what we need to do is, in GBAD, an important component is survivability against suppression and destruction of air defense, seed or dead, that is needed, which means if there is a aerial attack, we must be able to survive, and we also must be able to destroy the enemy's systems. That is what is seed or dead means. Then there must be deconfliction of air defense missiles, meaning in a particular theater, if many units are operating air defense missiles, there must be coordination between them, and there must be a decentralized execution of air defense function, because they must have better situational awareness than a centralized control system. So what clicked in Ukraine's case is that Ukraine used MANPADs, that is man portable air defense system. We'll see what is MANPAD in the next slide. And also in case of Russia, they use more of standoff launchers, that is they use cruise missiles, short range ballistic missiles that didn't stand enough ground against the man portable air defense systems. So we also need to take lessons, influence and inspiration from this kind of warfare. I'm not promoting war, I'm just saying we have to take lessons in strategy from these kind of systems. And in case of Russia, in the first few days of the war, their tactics were confined to standoff launches. That is also that also became unsuccessful in long term in comparison to more agile man portable air defense systems. So in Ukraine's case, their ground based air defense system, they shot down almost 50% of Russian cruise and ballistic missiles. And again, there is one thing, that is loitering munitions. That is, we would not know when there would be aerial bombing, aerial targeting of ground-based resources. So, how to better equip our air defense system? There must be high-rate gun system, better optic sights for scoping to improve the focus and precision. Then fragmented ammunition. Fragmented ammunition is the ammunition which upon hitting the target, it breaks down into splinters. That is fragmented ammunition. And improved radars, active electronically scanned array radar, RCR radars. So these are all the tactics that must be employed to counter loitering munitions, which are a characteristic of modern warfare, and these were seen in the Russia-Ukraine conflict. So in this context, these are the lessons from Russia-Ukraine conflict. What is the status of India's defense? So we are doing air defense modernization and we are in a transition stage. So like Indian Air Force's integrated air command and control system, there is a networking and automation project that is happening in the Indian Army side as well. Again, there is a approval that is given for very short range air defense systems. So we can make use of these kind of man portable air defense system rather than standoff launches. These kind of very short range air defense systems would be very useful. And there is also emergency procurement, that is to import V-shot. We already saw about V-shot, very short range air defense system. There is a proposal for import of these systems. And the quick reaction SAM, which has a SAM is surface to air missile. Quick reaction SAM is under development by DRDO. The range is 25 to 30 kilometer. So these are also tactical missiles. So from the Russia-Ukraine conflict, more and more lessons are coming in terms of using tactical weaponry. That is why QRSAM is in demand. Medium range missiles are also in demand because of that. Now this is the man portable air defense system. So it is very lightweight and it can be carried even by a single person. So if it can be carried by a single person, the maneuverability and the agility will be far better than this kind of a system, which is a standoff launch. So this will be more agile. That is why Ukraine was successful. That is what the article says. There is a launch tube, there is a thermal battery, and here is the grip stock by which grip is there, and sighting scoping through which the missile is launched. This was very useful in the Ukraine-Russia conflict. So the summary of this article says that we need to improve our air defense system, and for that some indigenous systems have to be developed. That includes medium range surface to air missiles and quick reaction surface to air missiles. There have to be less dependency on Russia, and finally we have to have tactical weaponry. So now we will move on to the questions of today. This was asked in Prelims 2011. Among the following, who are eligible to benefit from Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Act? A. Adult members of only the scheduled caste and scheduled tribe household. B. Adult members of below poverty line household. C. Adult members of households of all backward communities. D. Adult members of any household. The answer here is D. Okay. Any household where there is a demand for unskilled work, they will be covered under the NREGA Act. Next question, this was also asked in 2018. What is Terminal High Altitude Area Defense THAAD, sometimes seen in the news? A. An Israeli radar system. B. India's indigenous anti-missile program. C. An American anti-missile system. D. A defense collaboration between Japan and South Korea. The answer for this is C. An American anti-missile system. This THAAD was supplied to South Korea when it was facing threat from North Korea. So why this question I have highlighted is, when there is an ongoing conflict, some unique systems that are used, right, that would be asked. So in the Ukraine article, there is more discussion on manpads. So there might be a prelims question on what are manpads. To highlight that, I have given this question. So anyways, this is the end of our discussion. Subscribe to our social media platforms. This is Indumati signing off. Thank you. Good day.